Well, some of us are really good with math sense, while others are really good with creating decimals using long division. However, there is a third option which you can use. You can find common denominators. So again, we have 3/7 here. I'm just going to rewrite that. 3/7. And for problem or response A, we have 1/2. So 1/2. For B, we have 3/5. I'm going to write it way over here, and then in a second I'll get some more room. For C, we have 7/10. Followed by D, which is 4/11. Okay, so let's get some extra room on the screen here. I'm just going to scroll down just a little bit, and that should probably do it. Okay, so the goal here when looking at all of these fractions is to find the one fraction which the value is less than 3/7. But here in this third column, we're going to find common denominators. So we're going to find a common denominator for 1/2 and 3/7, 3/5 and 3/7, so on and so on. So let's just start with problem A, or response A, which is 1/2. So let's just take 1/2 real quick, and I want to compare it to 3/7. So I'm going to rewrite 3/7 here, and we're going to find a common denominator. So we're going to look at the values in the denominator, both the 2 and the 7. And what we're really doing is we're going to find a common multiple. What value do both 2 and 7 go into? Well, one thing I could do is list all of the multiples for 2, all of the multiples of 7, and figure out which value is the same in both lists. Or there's a simpler way. In the simpler way, let's just grab a new pen color real quick. If you multiply straight through on bottom, so 2 times 7 here, well, that gives us a value of 14. So 14 is the common denominator. It's the multiple that both 2 and 7 go into. So I'm going to create a blank fraction bar below 1/2, another one below 3/7. And I know that both of them have a common denominator of 14. So I can put a 14 here and a 14 here. All right, the next thing I want to do, I'm just going to go ahead and erase this arrow. And I'm going to ask myself, well, how did I get from 2 to 14? Well, earlier we stated if you multiply straight through on bottom in the denominators, 2 times 7 gets to 14. So I had to multiply 2 times 7. I'm just going to make a note that we multiplied by 7 here. If you do it to the bottom, you have to do it to the top. So I'm going to multiply by 7 on top. Well, 2 by 7, or 2 times 7, in the denominator gives us a value for a 14 for the denominator. So if I take 1 and multiply it by 7 for the numerator, my numerator should be 7 now. Let's look at 3/7. How did I get from 7 to 14? Well, we multiplied by 2. So I'm going to multiply by 2 on the bottom. If I multiply by 2 on the bottom, I've got to do it to the top. So 7 times 2 gave us a value of 14. 3 times 2 gives us a value of 6. Okay, my denominators are the same. I have common denominators. Since both values are the same on bottom, all I have to do is look at the values in the numerator. Whichever value is larger on top, well, that creates the bigger number. So 7 is larger than 6. Therefore, this fraction, 7 over 14, or 1/2, is larger than 3/7. Therefore, we know that A cannot be the correct answer. Let's move over to B. I'm going to go back to that blue color. So now we're taking 3/5. We're going to compare it to 3/7, and I'm going to rewrite 3/7 over here. So now I'm looking for common denominators. If I'm looking for common denominators, an easy way of doing this is just multiply straight through on bottom 5 times 7, which gives a value of 35. So the common denominator of 5 and 7 is 35. This means if I were to list all the multiples of 5 in one row or one list and all of the multiples of 7 in another list, they would both have 35 in that list. 35 is a multiple of both of these numbers. So my common denominator is 35 in this case. But before we actually solve this problem using a common denominator or finding a common denominator, I want you to take notice of something. Look at the value in the numerator here. It's a 3, and the value in the numerator here is a 3 as well. Since the value is 3 for both numerators, I can show you another trick here. Just ask yourself, which fraction creates the smaller number? And the way we do this is we ask ourselves, okay, if I have 3, the value 3 in both cases, if I were to divide 3 by 5, or if I were to divide 3 by 7, well, which one will create a smaller number? It's going to be 3 divided by 7 because 7 is larger than 5. Since 7 is bigger than 5, or it's a larger number than 5, this value will be much smaller compared to this one. So let's just make a note that 3 divided by 7 is smaller. Well, that means that our response, 3/5, is not less than 3/7, so we know that B can't be the correct answer. So let's change pin colors again and compare 7/10 to 3/7. Okay, so if we multiply straight through here, 10 times 7 will give me a value of 70. So my denominator should be 70 in both cases. Well, how did I get from 10 to 70? I multiplied by 7 on the bottom. If I do this to the bottom, I've got to do it to the top, so by 7. 7 times 7 will give me a value of 49. And how did I get from 7 to 70? Well, I multiplied by 10. So if you multiply by 10 on the bottom, you've got to multiply by 10 on top. 3 times 10 will give me a value of 30. Since we have a common denominator, or the number in the denominator is the same, let's compare the values in the numerator. 49 is larger than 30. So this fraction, 7/10, is larger than this fraction, 3/7. Therefore, 7/10 is not less than 3/7. So response C can't work. Which means D has to be the correct answer, but we're going to check our work still. So let's write 3/7 below here. So 3/7, and now I'm going to take that pink color and multiply straight through along the bottom. So 11 times 7 gives a value of 77 in the denominator. And then put 77 in the denominator of both of those. Well, how did I get from 11 down to 77? I had to multiply 11 times 7. So if I did that to the bottom, so times 7 on bottom, do it to the top. So 4 times 7 gives a value of 28. How did we get from 7 down to 77? We multiplied 7 times 11. If you do it to the bottom, do it to the top. And let's just fix that multiplication symbol. 3 times 11 gives a value of 33. Now all I have to do is compare the values in the numerator. 28 is smaller than 33. Therefore, 4/11 is smaller than 3/7. And I could circle my correct answer, which is D. Cool stuff, guys. So when you're comparing fractions, you can choose to use MathSense and create models, or if you want to use long division, you can create decimals and compare the values, or if you want to compare the fractions themselves, find a common denominator. I'll see you guys in another video.